Paramount Pictures and DreamWorks Pictures present Jim Carrey, and Jim Carrey.
Then the unthinkable happened.
Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events.
Hey, what's up? My name's Kylie. Welcome to my channel. I am a film student studying at California Lutheran University here in Thousand Oaks. And if you couldn't tell by the title and the trailer, today I'm going to be reviewing Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events. Now you might be wondering, this movie came out 16 years ago. Is it still relevant? Why is she reviewing it? Well, I'm glad you asked. This movie just got released on Netflix, and this was one of my favorite movies when I was a kid. It came out when I was 5 years old, and I cannot tell you how many times I watched it. And so I was so excited that it came on Netflix. I hadn't seen the movie in years, but I just watched it yesterday, and so I'm so psyched to review it. Just a quick explanation of the structure of my videos. So I kind of start going over like who directed it, the actors, blah, 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 and then I go into more detail about the technical aspects and stuff like that, and then I might get into some spoilers, and then I do my final thoughts. So to describe this movie, IMDb says, when a massive fire kills their parents, 3 children are delivered to the custody of their cousin and stage actor Count Olaf, while he is secretly plotting to steal their parents' vast fortune. So this movie is directed by Brad Sibberling. This movie has quite the cast. Now let me get into this. So of course you have Jim Carrey as Count Olaf, and then you have Emily Browning as Violet and Liam Aiken as Klaus. And then you have Jude Law as Lemony Snicket, who his face is never shown, but he narrates the entire movie. And then you have Timothy Spall as Mr. Poe, who, if you don't recognize him, also plays Peter Pettigrew in the Harry Potter films. And then you have Meryl Streep as Aunt Josephine. She's wonderful in this movie. And then you have cameos from a ton of different actors. So you have Jane Lynch, who plays a realtor. You have Dustin Hoffman, who plays an audience member in the play in the finale of the movie. And then you have Luis Guzman as one of the actors in Count Olaf's posse, and Jennifer Coolidge, who is another actor in his posse. So this film is pretty stacked. I don't know really how they got all those stars in this movie, but I'm so glad that they did. It makes it so much fun to watch because you're watching it and then all of a sudden the door opens, it's Jane Lynch, and you're like, oh. So I also felt like this movie was relevant because in 2017 they made a TV series on Netflix called A Series of Unfortunate Events, and I wanted to talk about this a little bit because the girl that they cast for Violet, let me just put a side by side of Emily Browning and Melina Wiseman. Does anyone else see what I see? Okay, Emily Browning, Melina Wiseman. If I told you that these people were the same person, I feel like you might believe me. I don't know, but they went with someone that looks exactly like the original Violet for the TV show, which I thought was really interesting. And then of course you have Neil Patrick Harris as the new Count Olaf. I think that this was a good choice for casting. I mean, Neil Patrick Harris definitely has like a theatrical ability, but you know, he's not Jim Carrey. I think I might be biased because I love Jim Carrey so much, but I feel pretty comfortable saying that Jim Carrey was much better in this role. He was the original. I also think that Jim Carrey can be better transformed because you have Dr. Stefano, which is one of Count Olaf's disguises, and so here you have Neil Patrick Harris, who was transformed, and they gave him this weird like long beard and he's bald. And then you have Jim Carrey as Stefano, and look at him, look at his like creepy little mustache and his greasy hair. I just feel like they made him look so much more creepy and way different to his original Count Olaf look, which is incredible. I mean, we all know that Jim Carrey can just be completely transformed, and I'm not trying to knock Neil Patrick Harris at all. I think he really does his best, and he does a good job as Count Olaf. He's very theatrical, very fun. He's just not Jim Carrey. So to talk about the characters a little bit more, I think that the Aunt Josephine in the movie is so great. She's played by Meryl Streep. I feel like the hair and makeup team created such an interesting look for her. Her hair seems so precarious and yet so like perfectly placed, which is a good metaphor for her life because if you look at her house, you have this woman that's afraid of literally everything. She says, oh, I don't want you to touch the doorknobs because I'm afraid that they'll explode and a piece will go into my eyeball. And yet she lives in a house that is so precariously built on this giant cliff that she could literally just die any day. But she's a great character that I also feel like doesn't really get much justice in the TV series. I think that you just can't top Meryl Streep. I mean, how are you supposed to even go about that? And so I kind of feel like the TV show was a little bit pointless in a way. I was super excited about it, don't get me wrong. I actually loved the first season and I was really into it. And then the second season came around and I was a little bit bored, but I got through it. And then the third season came around and I was like, what happened? Like, this just kind of turned into a mess. And I never finished the third season and then it got canceled. So I guess other people felt the same way. But if we take a little bit closer look at the show and the movie, obviously they tried to get a lot of the looks very similar because Neil Patrick Harris and Jim Carrey, while they look different, they're able to cosmetically look pretty similar as Count Olaf. And then of course Violet, who just is just the same person. But if you look at the beach scene in the very beginning of the movie and then in the very beginning of the TV series, so here it is in the movie, and then here it is in the TV show. And I mean, I couldn't really find anything online that was like the exact same shot. I probably could have gone on Netflix and found that. But what I wanted to point out is that the vibes of the movie and the TV show, they're just very similar. And if you watch them either side by side or you watch the first episode of the show, and then you watch the movie, you'll notice that everything is kind of the same. And same goes for the scene where Count Olaf slaps Klaus. It happens in both the TV show and the movie, and the dialogue is all basically the same. I was into the show, but then after I rewatched the movie that I loved growing up as a kid and seeing all these amazing actors, I was like, why did they even spend the money to make this show? Also, I feel like Neil Patrick does his best, but I mean, okay, just watch this scene of Jim Carrey pretending to be a dinosaur, okay?
Let's go back to prehistoric times when dinosaurs ruled the earth.
Now, can anyone else really do that? Neil Patrick Harris certainly can't, okay? And in my opinion, when you have someone like Jim Carrey who has nailed this role, why do you need to make the TV show? I also just feel like the movie was so beautifully shot and it created this world so well, and the CG for the time was excellent. It's beautiful. This movie is so good. And a lot of the hues are like darker browns and then like yellows kind of. Let me show you, yeah, look at this shot right here. So like, this is Count Olaf's house, and I love the high angle shot because it makes the shadows and the pillars look so long, and this house just seems so big and like oppressive on these kids that are about to walk in. So the color scheme of this movie is brilliant and it's really beautiful and well shot. See, yeah, so you have more like dark tones and then yellows. This is a really cute shot, and I can't remember if this was in the TV show or not, but I really love this because they also have like the silhouettes of their parents in there as well. And then one last thing that I really wanted to point out that was just like a really nice creative touch that the movie had was this shot here. So it's Count Olaf's car. He has all these mirrors, I guess, to like keep an eye out all around him and on the cars behind him and stuff, but I just thought it was so funny. And this is also definitely lacking in the TV show. And it's not to say that the TV show needs to be exactly like the movie. I'd prefer that it wouldn't be, because if it's exactly the same, kind of how it is, then I don't really see the point to it. I feel like it needs to match the movie in its creative atmosphere, because the movie just does such a better job, I think. So I'm gonna keep this really short and sweet. I'm not really gonna get into the spoilers because there aren't really any. The movie is 16 years old, so hopefully you've seen it, but if you haven't, I haven't really spoiled anything for you, so you're welcome. Okay, so now I'm gonna get into the questions that I asked myself at the end of the video. There are 3 of them. First one is, did you like the movie? Yes, I grew up loving this movie. I watched it so many times when I was a kid, so maybe I'm biased, but I watched it again as a 20-year-old and I still absolutely adore it. So yes, I love the movie. How did this movie make me feel? This movie just makes me feel nostalgic, and it makes me remember reading these books when I was younger. It makes me remember asking my mom for like the 10th time if we could rent this movie from the movie store. Oh man, do you remember going to movie rental stores? How exhilarating it was when you were a kid to just like look at all these movies and you get to pick one out for the night, you know, when you're eating dinner with your family or whatever. Oh, good times. What did this movie leave me thinking about? I don't think that this movie is very much of a think piece. I think it's mainly for enjoyment, although I will say that the final scene, okay, wait, here, this is gonna be a spoiler, okay? This is a spoiler right here, so skip ahead to this time if you don't want to hear this. The ending when Count Olaf marries Violet, the 14-year-old. Now I know that it's because he's gross and he wants the fortune and that's it. There's nothing really sexual in nature about it. It just kind of like rubs me the wrong way a little bit now watching it, because this is, you know, post Me Too movement. Not that Jim Carrey has ever been accused of anything or like, you know, it was involved with that. It just like, you can't, I don't feel like you can get away with that kind of stuff in movies anymore. Like an adult, possibly in his 50s, marrying a 14-year-old girl. It's just kind of disgusting. And they don't like kiss or anything to seal the marriage or whatever. They just sign a certificate and all of that. But while I was watching it, I was just kind of like, ooh. So that stuck with me a little bit, and then obviously it left me thinking about the review I was gonna do for it. I was kind of debating it because the movie is a little bit older, but you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with reviewing old movies. I think that movies that are rewatchable are definitely worthy of getting reviews, so stay tuned, subscribe for more reviews. I think that I might do some more older movies coming up because there aren't a ton of movies in the theater that I'm really jazzed about seeing right now. I think the next one will be A Quiet Place 2, which, by the way, I don't really think that the first one needed a sequel, and I know that John Krasinski wasn't intending for there to be a sequel, but alas, there is one, so of course I'm gonna see it. I love the first one. But thanks for tuning in. I'm so glad that you made it to the end of the video, and I hope you tune in for the next one. Bye.